All right. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to call the October 26th special call meeting of the Finance Committee meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please? Oh, yes. Section 7A of the OMA does allow members to participate by other means for employment purposes. So we have member Zay that will be joining us via Zoom, and member Grant Eckhoff. They both had to go back to work. So can I have a motion? A second? All those in favor to allow them to participate? Any opposed? Member Krajewski?
Did I hear you right?
No.
No, there's a specific section in there that says employment purposes,
Yep.
and then there's another section that says
County.
public business of the public body. So it could be both personal employment and also if you're at a meeting for the body or something.
Okay, so we all voted, everyone was in favor. So if we can have a roll call, please.
Member Chaplin,
Here.
Member Chavez, Member Covert, Member Desart, Member DeCiani, Member Eckhoff, Member Garcia, here, Member Hart, Member Krajewski, Member LaPlante, Member Ozog, Member Pachalski, Member Renihan, Member Rutledge, here, Member Schwarzy, Member Selman, Member Tornatori, Member Zay.
Here.
Great, thank you. We have a quorum. Do we have any public comment this afternoon? No public comment. So chair remarks. I just want to thank everyone this afternoon for coming to this meeting. I know it's late and we've been busy all day, but I really do appreciate your attendance. I'd also like to thank our staff who put so many hours working on this to get this presentation ready for us. And I'd also like to thank members Krajewski, Renihan, and member Zay, who all lend their expertise in crafting our today's presentation. So with that, I will hand it over to Nick Hotmeyer to give our presentation.
Thank you very much. Once again, thank you very much for being here. I know it's been kind of a power-packed day, but this is extremely important. And I think that what you're going to see today, hopefully we can get some consensus and move forward. Just to give a little background, after our last meeting, we reached out to every elected official, every department head to make sure their requests were needed, accurate, and many of them did update their requests, and that's what you will see in this presentation. There are 90% of this you've seen before. There are some new and updated requests, and I'll point those out as well. You've seen this slide before, so quick reminder, we're talking about 179.3 million. We have received 89.6 already back in May, and looking for our second tranche, as they call it, next May of 22, another 89.6. All of the expenses, eligible expenses, can be retroactive back to 3/3 of this year, and the funds must be spent by 2026. A couple of our projects, this does come into play, some of the bigger projects, and you'll see that as we go. We do have some more information we've got from Treasury on this one, of ARPA compared to CARES Act. And the bottom bullet point is kind of important as you consider projects moving forward. There are different restrictions on the eligibility for these projects than we saw in the CARES Act. CARES Act was a little bit more wide open, and ARPA is a little bit more refined and defined in the scope. Much more extensive reporting. The requirements focus on program outcomes and effectiveness. So the reports that have to be produced by every government agency, much more extensive. And this is targeted to disproportionately impacted communities, including low income communities, as well as people of color. That's a big difference of ARPA versus CARES Act as well. So quick summary of what the actions the board has done to date. This is final actions the board have taken. The total of this is about 29-30 million, let's say. Obviously, the two biggest ones are the Reinvest DuPage, the Choose DuPage administered for us, as well as a community service nonprofit that was just recently approved. Those two constitute about 26 million, right around there. And then some other ones, staffing and other smaller ones, eviction court. So that leaves $149 million of ARPA that is unaccounted for. So what we've done, we've repackaged the projects. A lot of these projects you've seen before. So we've repackaged them. We put them into 5 different categories or buckets to maybe better consider them as we move forward. And we've organized them by similar scopes as well as accounting requirements through ARPA. The 5 main ones are public health emergency, responding to public health emergency, countywide water and sewer infrastructure, community assistance, that we've further subdivided into 2 parts, the county departments, as well as external government agencies. The 4th category we have is campus COVID mitigation, divided that into capital and technology. And then the final one is economic stimulus. So today, as we go through each project, so as each category or bucket, as I called it, is reviewed, any of the projects, individual projects can be examined, removed, funds can be added to them at will. Tabled projects today can be re-examined in the future or saved for contingency. We're looking for any projects that are acceptable by the majority of the board to move forward, to give staff the guidance to begin hard planning on them. So keep in mind, all of the accepted projects today will still need, all of the, committee, the chairman going through finance, county board for final approval. So there's more actions needed. And it'll still go through the normal procurement process. All of our cost estimates are all in totals. And then today for our discussion, even though we have the first tranche only, we're going to be discussing it in terms of the entire amount, the 180 million. So we will then work with departments and elected officials to figure out how to sequence that money so we meet the spending criteria so that we have enough for the first tranche and then the second tranche. So here's kind of the last chapter of the book at the beginning, just to kind of see what we're going to be looking at. Assuming that the board, you say everything that we're presenting you guys are good with, we're talking about a total additional allocation of 108 million today for bringing the 108 plus previously allocated, bring it to 138 million. And then that would leave 40 million, about 40.5 million in unallocated funds that would be for a future date, next spring, whatever you want to do. So assuming the board goes along with everything, after today, there would be 40.5 million left. And so to follow along, kind of a scorecard, we have given a cheat sheet on each of the boards. This has all the tables, the numbers. So as we make changes, we will update accordingly, staff will, and be able to give you a final number at the end. First one, responding to public health emergency. Probably the most important of obviously ARPA and CARES is responding to COVID itself. So as expected, the largest portion of this would be the health department. And then we have care center, their expenses have skyrocketed. From what we've seen, we are anticipating based upon expenses so far with testing, with what's happening over there with the premium pay. That's where we get to 7.5. And then we've rolled up all of the other COVID expenses for the other departments, elected officials, and the final one. Here's a little bit more detail. So the health department, you've seen this previously, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time in it. It has been reduced. In talking with Executive Director Ayala, she went through and she has a much better understanding now than the last time that we presented. And this is the revised total 24.0 million. And this is obviously the testing, the vaccination, all of the challenges they're facing over there. And if there's any of these topics that you want to discuss more, let us know, because every elected official and department head is available to talk about any of the projects.
Member Garcia, and then Member Desart, and then Member Pachowski.
Okay, so this is a must, in my opinion. We've got vaccinations coming up for children 5 to 11 that are desperately needed. again, we have to continue to fight COVID-19 because this is something that is affecting everything. It's like a drip down effect for everything I think that we're dealing with today. So this is something I wish I should have pushed harder last time. I think I talked to you, Nick, about this, because they are in dire need of getting this money sooner than later. So I'm going to be a big push to try to get everyone to try to back this amount of money.
And that's why we put it very first in the presentation.
I appreciate that, Nick.
Okay, member Desart, the member
Thank you.
Chowski, the member Ozak.
Thank you. And Nick, I agree with member Garcia. This is absolutely a must, top of our list. We need this now. My question is this $24 million? What does this represent? Is this 1 year? Will it take us all through the whole 5 years through December 2026? Or what does this represent? Because will we need to, I don't know. I'm not convinced COVID or its variants are done with us just yet,
Understood.
even though the numbers are going in the right direction. So will this 24 million take us through 5 years?
And I know the answer, but I'm going to ask Executive Director Ayala, which is online, to answer that question.
Director Ayala, Dawn Desart here. My question is, will this 24 million
Wait,
take us through
I
the
think
whole?
Wendy's still trying to.
Oh, trying to get her. All right. Maybe she didn't hear the question then.
Is she not on anymore?
I mean, because this is the most important
There she
bucket.
is. She's on.
This is the most important bucket, in my opinion. And I just want to make sure we have enough to cover any variance or any,
Karen, are you on?
anything coming up.
Yes. Can you hear me? Great. Thanks so much, Member Desart, for the question. This request is based upon spending, current levels of spending, but we anticipate that this will be sufficient based upon the current levels of spending for the entire 5 years.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Add one additional item here. This is kind of hopefully a worst case scenario. Karen and I were talking before. This does not include any contribution from the state, and they still have not dispersed their money. So theoretically, if there is money, sent down to our health department, this would reduce the need. But this is worst case scenario, assuming zero contribution.
Thank you. Member Chowski?
What percent or what part of this, those of us on collective bargaining, we're dealing with the convalescent center and we're trying to retain people, keep people, and we spend millions to get temporary agencies, spending millions of dollars for costs on that. Are we funding that enough? Because that's my biggest concern here, is that are we going to be able to keep, retain, and hire the necessary people to do everything at the convalescent center? And how much of that is going over?
So this is health department only. I mean, Karen can talk about whether she can retain people with this, but we do your specific question on the next slide. We'll talk care center.
I thought you brought up the convalescent center.
We on the next slide, we will.
I'm sorry, okay.
That's okay. All right, we're going to move, member Ozak, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Nick, I just want to reiterate, this is the entire ARPA funding.
This is all of the ARPA
Right,
funding,
okay,
everything.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Here's a care center. So the one thing we noticed, that this is substantially higher than the last time we came before you, because the costs are through the roof for the care center. Twice a day testing. It's just all of the COVID units over there, the premium pay. But to Member Pachowski, your comment is absolutely, we have premium pay in this for the COVID. What is allowed by ARPA, we have incorporated. So this is taking our expenses up to this point. We have tracked out what we think it's going to be throughout the COVID eligible time of ARPA, and that's where you get 7.5 million.
And we talked in collective bargaining about how difficult it is because all the costs are going up all over. And it just seems to me, we're always like a little bit behind, okay? There's other place to go to make more money. And does this get us to at least equal with what other what other private or other places are spending? Because if not, then I would like to put more in there because we have a retention problem. And if we're not going to give them sufficient income to sign on, stay on and recruit them, then what are we doing?
And you've got two buckets to work with for that. Obviously, not all of that pay is going to be eligible for ARPA. Some of it will be. So they do have funding available for what they're doing for collective bargaining, and they have this money available to them as well. And I know we have Janelle on the line, but I think this is sufficient to achieve what they're trying to do. I know the collective bargaining is, they're meeting a couple times a week with the union to get that resolved, and hopefully it'll be resolved soon. But absolutely, this is going to be a piece of that solution.
All right, thank you.
Member Rutledge, then Member DeCiani, then Member Dessert.
Thanks, Chair Chaplin. A little bit of an aside, but first of all, I want to thank Member Puchowski for raising that issue because it is something that's definitely been on my mind. But help me remember, I thought I recalled that President Biden said that if they were getting Medicare or Medicaid money in facilities like the care center, that they were mandated to be vaccinated. Is that the correct recollection that I have?
Are you talking the residents or the workers?
The workers.
And it's my understanding that it's a vaccination or a test requirement. But I know it's a very fast evolving law. And I think people are still trying to make sense of it. But I think that there's a vaccination or test. And they are in full compliance at the care center.
And what percentage of employees, I know we get that number periodically, what percentage of caregivers there are currently vaccinated?
Janelle?
It's in excess of 85%. We were actually just recognized by Telegen for our high percentage of vaccination of both our residents and our staff. We just held a booster clinic for residents, and we have approximately 92% that had received the booster, and we're going through the booster for the staff right now. But yes, it's correct. Illinois Department of Public Health came through and said that they need to be vaccinated or they need to participate in weekly testing. Right now, when we have any cases of COVID in our building amongst a staff member or a resident, we're having to test everybody every 3 to 7 days. So if we have no cases, which it is slowing down, then we will go to those individuals that are unvaccinated will be tested once a week.
Well done, Janelle. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Janelle. Member DeCiani, go ahead.
I think I may have answered my own question, but I also want to make sure that we've got the facilities included, but it's probably going to be under the campus items
We got you
to
covered.
make sure that.
Yeah, this is purely operating.
Okay, perfect.
And I will, to let everybody know how this was computed. I mean, Janelle and her team met and worked closely with our finance team to come up with that number, because you obviously have to extrapolate it out.
Yep.
And so that is the number that the team consensus had.
I do agree with Member Puchowski, and there's such a demand right now on nurses and CNAs and medical staff from the hospitals that are offering huge incentives. So that's going to put even more pressure on Janelle and her team over there to step up and meet those costs to lure people to stay here and hopefully come out and be employed at the county. So it's important that we pay those people well and give them what they need to compete. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Dessert.
Thank you. Okay, that may have answered my question too, if it's just operating, because I'm looking at these ARPA requests from May 1st and July 29th of this year, and both are requests for 27.2 million for the care center. But that does include building improvements and upgrades, HVAC improvements, and operating expenses.
Those will be
And I
coming
guess
later.
I thought those were in here as well because it
Yeah.
says machinery and equipment,
Yeah.
but this is just operating. So
That's just operating.
so we're going from 2.8 million to 7.5 million. All right, that answers the question. Thank you.
The one thing I did forget to mention, the whole above and below the line I did before, I've completely burned that. And so we're starting from scratch on the above and below, but a lot of the numbers are the same. Obviously, the projects are the same. So, and then the final component of that category,
Just real quick, Nick, PPP is just the bullet point up there. We've stockpiled a whole bunch with CARES money.
we've
Is this-
stockpiled a ton.
So is this additional on top of all that?
There may
stockpile?
be components that we couldn't maybe get, a certain type of
So that's just a
booty.
bullet point. then.
Nah, it's
All
just,
right.
it's just, we have
That's fine.
PPE that filling rooms
Yeah,
over there.
we stockpiled it. Okay.
Go ahead.
Just
Mrs.
one
Sarah.
more quick thing. So there's, the care center is still going to be asking for the 16 million in building improvement and upgrades and 7.5
Coming up, yep,
million in
they will.
HVAC. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Yep. This is just kind of the responding and the operating. So the final two pieces of this category would be the other projected expenses for operating for elected officials and other general fund departments. What we've done, if you remember previously, there were, miscellaneous expenses people had throughout. We've rolled them all up together and we put them in the 1.8 million. Then that way it's much easier for our finance department to control it, manage it, report it, and make sure all of the documentation is in place. But this rolls up all the other expenses. They'll work with the departments and they'll be the one submitting the report. We also have in this category, sheriff and jail related operating expenses of 1.559. It includes all of the cleaning supplies over there, which is quite substantial. If you remember, mattress replacement has been a very, this is actually a reimbursement to them. It was so important, they moved on their regular budget and as a reimbursement. And then the table replacement over there, that's been an initiative. And then reimbursement to the general fund for the extra expenses that were incurred by them for keeping inmates and not being able to transport them downstate. And so that equals 1.559 for additional 3.4. So I think the plan, let's go back to this bucket. The plan was to go bucket by bucket, I do believe. So
Yes.
this is the bucket we just talked about.
So all of these expenses, this is bucket number one. I feel like I'm on Bozo Circus right now. We're on bucket number one. The grand prize is no, but seriously. So this is bucket number one. Can we get general consensus from this body as to if we want to move these projects forward or if we're not going to move them forward? So can I see a show of hands of who wants to move this forward? Oh, okay. Well, right now I'm taking it on the whole. Do you want to pull something out? I think I have the consensus from the whole board to move it forward, so. That's down farther in the.
No, the
pres-
tables
isn't it?
were.
Oh, are they in there?
Tables were.
Okay, they're in there.
were Right
Okay,
here.
okay. Okay.
I'm just saying I'm not in favor of tables and some of these things at the jail that are related. Obviously, additional cleaning supplies are important, but I mean, and we voted several times on mattress purchases. How many mattresses do they need?
Well, it's the, so. both
It's like the third
tables-
time we voted on mattresses.
Tables and the mattresses were requested in CARES Act. CARES Act ran out of money for the mattresses, so they paid for it out of their own money, and this is a reimbursement. The tables, I will tell you, they've been asking for several years, and this is important, and I know that Eddie Moore is online to talk about tables or any of the items you'd like, but I know that they're having trouble cleaning them. These are sold and they're gouged, and they can't get them, clean to stop the spread. So that's why they're requesting.
Okay, hey Eddie, what do tables have to do with COVID?
Good afternoon. I'm going to turn this over to Deputy Chief Schoenberger from Corrections. He can give you a better insight of why we want those tables.
So the tables right now we have are steel, which are have been powder coated with paint many times over. So it makes it difficult for us to clean the surfaces, which has been a one of our main focuses is keeping the jail clean to prevent the COVID spread. So the transfer over to stainless steel tables would eliminate the problems we're having with the cleaning of the tables right now.
Okay, well, if you have consensus
answer
from
your-
everybody else.
Okay, Member Ozak.
And if I could ask Sergeant Moore, was the mattresses were also an upgrade in terms of spread of disease, right? I seem to recall that.
Correct. They were
Super protected, whatever.
correct, and they took out the stitching was welded together, so it was all one solid surface that It was
Micro whatever. Thank you.
micro whatever, which made the cleaning of the mattresses much more efficient. It didn't absorb any of the chemicals.
Go ahead, Member Chowski.
No, I think one of the reasons we're having this meeting was, Commissioners, we're spending all this money at one time and we got till December of 2026. Are these projects that we need to be doing right now, or should we be deferring them? I'm kind of like a rainy day fund, are we gonna have that? Because last time around, I think we're spending it all by next year. And I think it was Commissioner Desart's comment that necessitated us going over this. And are these things that have to be proceeded on now are necessary, or do we want to wait until it's a little bit later or not?
Point of personal privilege, because you mentioned my name. Thank you,
What
Member
is favorable?
Pachowski. That
What
is
is that?
perfect. That is excellent. That's exactly what I'm saying. Rainy day fund, I'm with you.
Okay, Nick, please
So,
proceed.
yeah, so we do have 40 million that's unallocated. And the one thing I would say is many of these projects are multi-year projects, especially some of the bigger projects. You could easily, let's say COVID pops up in January or June next year, a $17 million project, maybe you're just getting design done. Design is going to take a year and a half. So if something does go wrong, you could easily pull back 40, 50 million in addition to the 40 million sitting there, because these projects are so long-term. The care center is a perfect example. 17 million, that's a 4-year project. And so there's plenty of avenues to, if the board, 40 million is sitting there even after you do all of these, if you do all these projects, but you could easily pull another 40, 50 million out if something were to go wrong.
Member Selman.
Thanks. And Nick, I think you clarified this at the beginning of your presentation, but when you went back to the departments to get them to give you your short list, this was the most pressing, the most urgent, like this is their cream of the crop prioritized list that leaves us with that 40 million in case things go
You'll
awry.
see a lot of departments took it out. So I'm not going to question departments or elected officials when they say this is out of the 5 I had, these 3 are what I really have to have. And so that's what you see today. And that's why I ask everybody to be on to defend their projects.
Okay, so I'm just going to double check with the consensus. Do we have consensus to move this bucket, the complete bucket, forward? Okay, yes, we have. Yes, Member DeCiani. Yeah, your microphone, please.
On the other side, some extra dollars for the.
When we get there.
Okay.
Yeah, when we
very
get there,
good.
we'll,
Thank
yeah,
you.
we're in bucket 1. So, okay, no worries.
So
Great, so I
bucket
believe we have
one,
general consensus to move forward with bucket 1.
so staff will move all these initiatives forward, whatever. So we will move that. So now we are on bucket
Bucket number 2.
2. Probably the most straightforward one, to be honest with you, the countywide water and sewer. These are exactly what was presented previously. And, the difference between ARPA and CARES Act, ARPA calls these out specifically. They are specifically called out. So you can see it's the 22.1 million. Stormwater, I don't know how they do it, but every time they're talking about money, it seems to rain about 4 inches right before they do it. So they have the 22.1, and I know they have run that through Stormwater Committee. Both Chairman Zay and Director Hun have brought it through, and they have concurrence in there. And in the original Public Works project for 1.8 million for 23.9. Is exactly the same slide you saw before. There's a perfect example of what we talked about. Yes, it's 22 million, but they've already said in stormwater, they only have the capability of probably implementing 4 million the first year. 4 or 5 million, I think, is that. And so even if it's approved, this isn't going to be spent out till the end of the ARPA schedule. So there's a perfect example. If something went wrong, you guys can always pull money back if you have to. So like I said, all of these projects, everything. And if you have specific projects on stormwater, Director Hun is here.
I think given the lack of money that we've had in the stormwater, it's important that we take advantage of these funds, and it's federal money. We're going to target those with a municipal match, ideally, from what I understand.
And that's an important point. So yes, it's 22.1 million, but I do believe that the plan is ultimately to seek out matching money. So that 22.1 million might be able to parlay into 30, 35 million.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot of stormwater projects.
And we don't
across the
often
county.
get a bite at these apples, so I say. we-
That's, and
Yeah.
that's what we talked about when we received this money. We said, this is going to change the county. It's going to allow us to do a lot of things that we weren't allowed, that we couldn't do before. So it really is a good opportunity and we should take advantage of it while it's here. So thank you for the comments. Member Garcia, Renahan, and Krajewski.
Yeah, thank you. I'm obviously in favor of this. And I want everyone to understand that it takes a long time to actually plan for these projects. So there's a lot of engineering required to this. So the sooner we can get this approved, the sooner this work can begin. And as we all know, as Member Rutledge keeps talking, the climate is changing. And so I do think that this is what we're supposed to be doing, is protecting the residents of DuPage County. So I think that this should be a definite yes too.
Thank you. Member Renahan.
This is, I guess, for Director Hun. I'm just wondering how you all prioritize these. Is it a certain amount per district or a more pressing need, or how did you come to this?
So actually what we've done is we've kind of analyzed what we think we can logically spend, knowing that there are some pretty strong permitting requirements when it comes to stormwater projects. And those permitting requirements take a couple years. And so if we don't already have preliminary engineering done, then we would put that funding out for a municipal match. And the time that it takes for municipalities to come up with their match share and have their permitting completed has a long amount of time too. And then we figured out how much could be obligated and then constructed. And so we went through our priorities, carved that off, and then went through what we felt would be a good significant municipal match program, as well as a township match program, because as we know, the unincorporated areas kind of can miss out when municipalities are getting funding. And so we actually had a township match as part of this as well.
Member, hang on a second. I have Member Krajewski and then Member Ozak.
Just real quick, Sarah, it's been a few weeks. I don't know if you had time to think about it, but if you had unlimited funds, how much more could you handle? Or are you at capacity you can't handle anymore? So if excess funds come available, we don't have to give it to you in the next few years, or you can handle more.
The communities would say we can handle all we can get, especially if we have a municipal match program. This is working through what we think we can handle at our staff level, and that includes hiring consultants to help us manage this, and also incorporating what we know is municipal match program through our watershed planning process.
Because I mean, that's peanuts for the municipal match program, because kind of frankly, the municipals, if you look at them, they'll probably have hundreds of millions of dollars if they were to fix everything that they had in their communities.
And they likely could have that much, but the catch is of when this has to be spent by and how long it takes to permit those projects and get them built. And so that is actually the catch.
Can you use this for pre-engineering then?
You can actually use this for pre-engineering.
So we could use additional money, we could get projects done by 5 years from now, so that.
I like the way you're thinking, Member Krajewski.
No, seriously. Well, and then you're eligible for the grants and everything. You have everything on the table, ready to go. But I mean, I would look at potentially if.
Absolutely. And our intention is that if we actually design a project under ARPA funds and then we receive a grant for it, we still believe that design qualified for ARPA. However, we can fund it, the actual construction, with a state or federal grant. And so we're moving full speed ahead with all of our designs, knowing that we have that amount in there for retroactive reimbursement.
And this is a good example, both the stormwater here, putting on my hat a long, long time ago when I used to be in stormwater. These type of projects, when we talked about how long they take, some of these are the most difficult projects there is to build out. You can build a high-rise building easier than it is to build stormwater projects, because you've got every federal, every state agency known to man permitting this. And so permitting itself can take 2 to 3 years sometimes on these projects. So this is why, getting the money up front, and they can start designing all the projects up front. Some of them may go quick, some of them may take longer. There's a perfect example of that money taking 4 or 5 years to spend.
Okay. Member Ozak, go ahead.
So in terms of spending this money, if it has to go into pre-engineering, you would just somehow you'll get this money spent in the 5-year period, whether it actually goes into hard construction or it's pre-engineering, you'll get the money spent.
Correct. And there is actually an obligation date that precedes the spending date. And so that's actually our target date that we've been working on, is when we can get it obligated, knowing that in construction, there can be delays because of weather.
Okay.
And so we need to make sure we meet that obligation date.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, and Member Dessert.
Thank you. Yeah, I just, I really think our priorities are health department, community services, giving it out to people most in need, and this stormwater, because to underscore what Nick said earlier, the ARPA guidelines specifically call out stormwater, water, and sewer. So I am fully in support of these expenditures. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Any other discussion on bucket number 2?
We've
Okay.
got one more item, bucket number 2,
Yes,
and you've seen this
Public Works.
before. This is the sewer side of bucket number 2, 1.8 million. What does that mean? Okay. This is actually a great project. It's replacing the turbo blowers down there, not only taking this off the needed construction down there, but you're going to be saving $200,000 a year in perpetuity. And these have a direct impact on the rates of about 40,000 customers we have. And so not only does sewer and water and stormwater a direct mention in there, both the stormwater and the public works project benefit underprivileged areas, under the low income areas. There's benefits out there. So it pretty much checks all the boxes, both of these. So, and this is going to be done in a much bigger project, but now we can do it much earlier because of the 1.8 million. So this is bucket number 2.
Okay, Paula, do you have questions? Oh, okay. Any other discussion on bucket number 2? Okay, seeing none. Can I get a general consensus to move bucket number 2 forward? Oh, yes, we have a general consensus. All right, great. So this gives stormwater and public works the green light to go ahead, start and work on these projects. So thank you so much. And we move to bucket
Next
number
one,
3.
community assistance. And I'm assuming Mary Keating, there you go. She's front and center on this one. So community assistance, we group this for community assistance, both county departments and external agencies. And so there's 2 sub buckets here. And my suggestion is we look at the county departments first, and then we can look at the external second. But you can see overall, and this is one where this board has already dedicated 10.6 million for the nonprofits. So that was a big portion of that, but there's still a lot of components left in the request from community services, as well as you see the fire protection, park district, and township. And we'll talk about that when we get there. Total request for this bucket is $8.8 million. So internal county departments, obviously it includes the 211, DuPage pads for the homeless shelter. And then we've got 2 ROE initiatives. You've seen the first one. The second one is a new one. And I know we do have Superintendent Rossetti on to discuss it if need be. So we will start with my clicker not working. So, all right. 211, you've seen this all before. This is an all-in price over the cost of the 5 years. It's an agreement with AC/DC to, start up, run 211. Obviously, I think there's a big want by the board to get this. There has been for some time. Total all-in 5-year price, 1.6 million. It's important to note there will be an ongoing cost, obviously, impacting our budget after this. But I think that this was a fairly uniform direction to move that forward. Is there any questions on 211 for Mary here?
Member Schwerzy, the member Dessert.
There we go. No questions. I have to express my support for this program. The county offers so many things for so many people that are much needed, and many people in this county don't know about it. The ones that do know about it can't figure out which number to call. The ones that do know about it may need immediate help in the middle of the night, and there's nobody manning the phones to be able to help them. So this is especially with holidays coming on and the mental
help that people need during the holidays and into the spring is a huge thing. And I know this will take a few months to get off the ground, but this program will save lives. At $1.6 million, this program will save lives. So thank you for letting me express my views.
Sure, thank you. Member Desart.
Yeah, I agree.
Member-
I'm fully supportive of this program. I know two people who have died by suicide in the last 2 weeks. So I think this is very, very important. My question for future boards is, what is that ongoing cost, just to have it in your mind, in our minds? So after a five-year term, have you, I'm sure you know what the yearly cost would be for this program.
Well, right now, the model here is that the ACDC Center would be taking the nights and weekends. So they would be, so we would have an annual contract with them. What we'll do over the 5-year period is really get a better understanding of what it does take, if it takes additional staffing, or if the current staffing levels at ACDC can actually handle 211, or maybe it's one additional dispatcher. But currently the contract with them is, I want to say it's $180,000 a year. We also, during this time, will gauge how much additional staff we'll need in our information and referral division. As you know, our information and referral division currently provides what 211 is. It's, it's information about resources here within county operations as well as out in the community. We anticipate the calls will go up as the 211 number is sort of out in the community. So that's what we'll be looking at over the next 5 years is what is the impact on staff.
But about $180,000 a year.
That's for the nights and weekends.
Oh, just nights and weekends. Okay. One more quick question, and that is, should we build a marketing plan into this figure? How do we get the word out to the community that we have it?
We have such a solid network, I think, between the communications office and the DuPage communicators with all the municipalities. We have such strong connections within the nonprofit community, within the educational community through the regional office of education. We certainly can. I don't see it. I don't see us needing a huge amount of money for marketing. We may have some materials, but so many things are marketed digitally now that I think we could, if we need a little bit, I don't see us needing a significant budget.
And we did, I can't remember what meeting it was in, but in one of the meetings, we were talking about 211, and after the ARPA funds are used up, we did talk about possibly developing a 211 contingency fund so we can start saving for that. And, if it's a program that we want to continue, we're going to start building up that reserve so we have the money. So, that's something we had discussed to also fund this in the future. So I have member DeCiani, member Ozog, and then member Rutledge, and member Garcia was next. Then member DeCiani, then member Ozog, then member Rutledge.
Thank you. I just wanted to kind of repeat a thing that happened to me and why this is so needed. About 3 weeks ago, I was working in a community kitchen and we had a client walk in who was in dire need. And of course, it was a Saturday night. Trying to find anybody on a Saturday night who can give us any help, it was impossible. We could not find somebody at pads. They're not open on the weekends. We could not find anybody at family shelter that could help for that point in time. And we could not find the police officers who we called at that point, and they came and because they have nowhere to call. So for this to be open on the weekends is really a godsend, because, I think it's helping people of all levels of income and all problems. And so, I am highly behind this, and I am hoping everybody on the board is also.
Member Garcia, member DeCiani.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I am fully supportive. I would like to see if we can, because I believe it's ARPA eligible, part of the technology and even part of the ACDC side, if we could add a wandering component to this. So we have.
What component?
A wandering component. People that are elderly and people that often children who are cognitively impaired have a tendency to wander. And since this is kind of
wandering.
Getting.
I think we all thought you said laundering.
I'm sorry. These masks drive me crazy. Anyway, so at the end of the day, I was wondering if we can work that in. I believe it's ARPA eligible and it would tie right into what we're doing. And big picture, we see seniors get lost every day. We see kids get lost every day. We have the bloodhounds at the sheriff's office that, so if we could add a wandering component that would actually give us a bracelet for these people and use ACDC, which is a technology that I'm sure they can work with. I think we would have a win-win. We solve a lot of our issues that are right in line with what the folks that get lost on a regular basis have to deal with. So
that's not currently a component that I'm familiar with in terms of the technology or the cost. Certainly, I think it's probably something that on the law enforcement side would be absolutely worth exploring. 211, the 211 call takers they are not direct service providers. They're folks who are there to help people get connected to resources. But I certainly understand the need that you're talking about. I don't think anybody would disagree with the importance of having, technology when you've got individuals who wander or can't be located.
We can explore that and maybe come up with, costs and solutions. It might be something separate to 211, but it's definitely an option we can bring back.
Okay. I think it would fall under the community services umbrella, which is important for what we're doing, kind of similar in the same, in the same arena, so to speak. And I believe it's ARPA eligible, which would be great. We're often looking for these opportunities. So again, here's another way to solve the problem. So thank you.
Okay, I think Member Shorzy had a comment on this
Yeah, just
specific, and then I'll
in
go to Member
response to
Olson.
Member DeCiani. Certainly the ACDC call takers are trained in emergency telecommunications. And if they get calls along those similar lines, they'll know exactly how to handle it. And I don't know about the training in Health and Human Services Division, if they would be able to help in that aspect. But
That would be an entirely new service for my department.
Okay. So maybe we look at emergency training, some sort of emergency training for those people as well. So. And that goes for someone calling in the middle of the night, needing immediate help right then and there. All the call taker is going to do is put them in touch with somebody, but they'll also know whether to say, hey, this is an emergency. We need to get you help right away from 911.
Thank you. Member Ozog.
Thank you. I just need some clarification. ACDC means one thing in Public Works, but what does
It's
it mean?
a whole nother thing in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's the Addison Central Dispatch Center. It's the Addison Consolidated Dispatch Center.
Okay.
It's the 911 center.
But it's Addison? Okay, like
It's
in
the
Addison.
sister agency to DuPage, basically. The two of them are the 911 facilities.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
one of the two
Ah,
911
now I
centers.
got- Okay, thank you. Got it.
Consolidated Dispatch Center.
And the D is?
Dispatch. It's the 911. So the county has
ACDC.
two divisions that take
Got it.
911 calls. This is one of them.
Thank you.
Okay, Member Rutledge.
Thank you, Chair Chaplin. Just a curious question for me is the ongoing costs. Was there taken into consideration a reduction to maybe the sheriff's office or community services because we are addressing those kind of issues more quickly before they escalate into a crime or a real mental breakdown? Or so just curious how that might have played into the planning on that.
Well, I think that the plan is that having this 5-year horizon to really look at, all right, now the 211 is up and running. What is the impact on other services? What are the other funding models? 211 is operating all over the country, and practically every county and every state in the country that has 211 has a different funding model. Some of them are entirely government funded, some are funded entirely privately, some are a mixture of United Way and emergency service funds, health department funds. So I think that's all models that we need to look at over the next 5 years. But I think, given the economic and health crisis that we're in, taking the opportunity to get 211 up and running, it's really something we couldn't pass it off.
Great. Member Desart.
Thank you for letting me speak one more time, because I just wanted to ask you, will this 211 help in this scenario? This scenario happened to me in the spring. I was called about a young Black man behind a restaurant in Naperville. And I say Black man because that does, as we've seen with police, some police, we didn't want to call police in case it would escalate into something not good. All he was homeless. And I called several people. I called Eddie Bedford, my township supervisor. I called a city council member, seeing if anybody had homeless vouchers. Again, this was on a Sunday night when everything was closed. So what I did is I took the man to the Best Western and paid for a night for him so that I could get him services the next day. Would this, I just wanted to give you that scenario, would this 2-in-1 system have helped that man?
It's possible that it would sort of depend on what the situation was, what funding was available, what resources were available in the middle of the night. Typically so for example, we do in community services, we will get calls from time to time. The primary agency that responds to that's street outreach work.
Yeah.
The primary street outreach provider is DuPage Pads. So in terms of immediate response for something like that, to get someone into a hotel, it's possible. I can't promise you that every single call of every homeless person or every person experiencing homelessness in the middle of the night on a Saturday could be solved. But it certainly is, there's a better chance of it being solved with 2-1-1 operating than there is if there's not.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, you understand that the guy had 2 strikes against him. He was young in Naperville and he was Black in Naperville and he was on the streets. So I did not want to get police involved for obvious reasons, you know?
Right.
Thank you for your
Like I
answer.
said, I can't guarantee what would happen with an individual in the middle of the night looking for that resource.
Well, what would you do if you came across somebody like that?
Well, currently the DuPage Pads is the street outreach provider. That's one of the things that they are funded for is working with individuals experiencing homelessness who are unsheltered. Typically, they'll go out, they'll offer the person services, they'll see if the person is willing to engage in services, and then they'll engage them. Oftentimes, an individual may not want to engage in services, but so without knowing the specifics and the timing and whether or not that person was willing to engage in services, I can't really answer the question of this specifically how it would be addressed.
Okay, I think we're gonna move this conversation on a little bit because we're getting a little off topic, a little too much in the weeds here. Okay, do we have any other questions on? Yeah, go ahead, Member DeCiani.
ACDC can answer 24/7 or just nights and weekends. So our staff will answer during the day.
Yes, so what'll happen is when you operate 2-1-1, you work with all the phone systems. And so the
Okay.
all the telecom providers
Mhm.
reprogram all their switches so that any phone that would be within DuPage County that calls 2-1-1, if they call between our hours, and what we may do is expand some of our county staff hours a little bit, maybe 7 to 7. So if a person calls between 7 and 7, it would ring here in the 421 building. If they call at 3 in the morning, it would ring over at ACDC.
Okay. And these are basically for common calls of, I have an issue, not necessarily 911 call, but they could overlap in some respects, correct?
Right, yeah, they're not for 911 calls, but what the folks at ACDC said was that very often 911 dispatchers get these kinds of calls. Somebody wakes up in the middle of the night, they're worried about, how are they going to feed their family the next day? How
Right.
are they going to pay their rent? Whatever their crisis is.
Correct.
Sometimes they call 911 because they don't have anybody to talk to. They don't know who else they just want to talk to somebody and it's 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
So the folks over at ACDC said that their 911 dispatchers will take some of these calls sometimes because that's who folks call when they don't know who else to call.
Very good. Okay. I already texted Chief Hayden, who runs ACDC. We had tested a bracelet device, a GPS monitor that when activated would call 911 on a regular basis with a distress call, usually for people that they're already on smart 911, they have autism, they may be dementia, seniors or Alzheimer. So it's just a way to catch people quickly and know exactly where they're at. So just that's kind of the angle I'm looking at, but
Yep.
thank you.
Yes, I think they're gonna look into that. So thank you. Okay.
All
Any
right.
other questions on this item?
The next item under the community service or community assistance category for county departments is the PADS grant. This is a $2 million. This is exactly the same as you've seen prior. Total project for the new shelter is 7.5, and this is looking at a $2 million ARPA contribution for this, and it would obviously create a long-term sustainable model a permanent home for the housing center. Any questions
Any
on that one?
questions on this? The red Fin?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, go ahead, Nick.
So we have two other programs from ROE, Regional Office of Education. You've seen the first one for 130, the truancy staff additions. There's been obviously a huge increase in truancy, and they would like to hire 2 additional behavioral interventionists to actually go out in the field and help reverse that trend, meet with parents, meet with students, meet with the teachers to do that. So you've seen that one before. And a new program to be added is the Student Apprenticeship Pilot Program for 150. This morning, you guys actually kind of approved like the scaled down version of this that's more income based. This is not so much income based. This is more, you know, trying to fill a niche of maybe sectors, business sectors out there that don't have enough workers, and maybe trying to train the high school students who are a little bit, you know, unsure what to do, try to get them in those sectors. And I don't know if there's, I know that you know far more about this, and I know that Superintendent Rossetti is on as well. So it's 150,000 for the total of between 280.
So I have member Ozak and then member Chavez.
Okay, my first question is, are these one-time grants or one-time allocations?
These are both 1-year expenses to see.
1 year.
It's so think of it as kind of like a pilot program.
Okay.
Obviously they haven't been done, see how they work. And I would probably say that at some point, the ROE would come back and give you guys real concrete data about successes or failures or how it worked, whether it was
carry
good,
on.
and whether there's more, whether you want to carry it on after the first year.
And then I have one other quick question for Superintendent Rossetti. Would there be a plan to tie this apprentice pilot program in with Technical Center of DuPage?
Superintendent Rossetti, are you on? Jeremy?
I am on. I'm filling in for Dr. Rossetti. There obviously this will be a pilot program initially, but there will be other opportunities for us to explore that avenue if need be.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, member Ozak. Member Chavez?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just want to say that I was really appreciative to Dr. Rossetti for reaching out to member Krajewski and myself. I think this is an amazing program. We keep hearing over and over again in economic development how hard it is to find workers. This will really be a great apprentice program for those manufacturing jobs, tying this in. So I think it's the perfect use of these funds. So I'm in full support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Member Krajewski?
I believe they are working with the College of DuPage. They tried to start this up very small last year, and it was with some private manufacturers and the College of DuPage.
I know
Right.
it's like I
Well, it's the
said,
high
this is,
schools, but they're using the College of DuPage.
Yeah.
is it?
It is on. Okay.
No, you got to sit closer to it, Brian.
It's red's on. Okay. Yeah, no, I think it's high school students, but I think they're working in conjunction with manufacturers and the College of DuPage's technical training.
And when we discussed this item in our meeting last week, I just want to make sure that it met the ARPA requirements, and I believe that it was vetted, and they do feel that it's ARPA qualifies for ARPA. So.
And that's a great point, because we have looked at each and every one of the items today, and we feel with what we know right now that they all meet the ARPA requirements. Obviously, as we move forward with any of these, we will continue the investigation, make sure, and if something raises a red flag, we'll get everybody together and we'll talk about it at that time. But yes, everything today we feel meets ARPA requirements.
So, yeah. Any other questions on the community assistance bucket?
Now, the question is, do you want to
county
vote
department
on the sub
substantial.
bucket here, like the sub, or do you
Yeah,
want to do the whole
I
thing?
think we should vote on the sub bucket and then we'll move on to the next bucket. Yeah.
So this is the sub bucket right there.
So do we have general consensus for this sub bucket
You want
to
bring
move
everybody
forward
online?
for the ROE and the 2-on-1? Okay, and pads. Yes, we have general consensus.
Good.
So for that
So that
bucket,
is-
yes. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, Member Krajewski, you're waving your hand
I have
back
one
there.
other question. I guess it's maybe in this sub bucket. I don't know if I was gonna bring it up under the next one, but maybe it's good here. With regards to the community assistance, we have the, whatever, 10.6 million we've already approved for the community development program, and that's gonna take a while for DuPage Foundation to administer that. But one of the things is it's already, whatever, October, we got these funding in May, is the food pantries out there. And I'm specifically, I talked to the one in Downers Fish Food Pantry, which is grown in size. It's about 4 times the size with the new one. And their increased, whatever they're providing per people is gone through the roof. And they're spending, you know, thousands of dollars a month in acquiring stuff. And I know eventually we're gonna get the money to the Northern Food Bank, but I would like to see us put some immediate money in for these food pantries that are seeing a lot of people coming in, an increase, and they're having to shell out money to buy, they're close to the ground, so they know exactly what their people are in need, and they're spending that, and we've got this money in May.
Are you, can I ask a question? Are you talking about food pantries run by townships
Well,
or any food
I'm just,
pantries?
well, I'm just, there's all of them in the county. I'm not familiar with, I know, I think some townships run the food pantries. This specific one in Downers, it's a separate not-for-profit that used to be in the basement of the township. The township built a brand new building, but leased it to the not-for-profit right next to their building. So it's a quasi. So it's not the township where we're getting that one next. It's its own food pantry, not-for-profit. But they're spending thousands of dollars because of the new facility. They're out that money. We're going to eventually get to the DuPage Foundation, who's going to vet everybody. It could be months down the road. They've been incurring this since, well, March 3rd, which is when the ARPA starts. And I'd just like to see us maybe set aside some money that we can give directly to these places in DuPage County immediately, because eventually, like I said, it's going to go to the Northern Food Bank and they're going to determine who's going to get it. But these are local food pantries right on the ground that are seeing the same residents come in day in, day out. They know what they need, but they don't have the money to acquire everything they need. And so they're spending their own money or trying to raise money. And I don't think it's a lot, but we put $500,000 or $1 million and get it to them immediately.
Because this is the internal. I think what you might be
We'll go to
talking
the
about
next
would be the community assistance
Yes.
external right
Yes.
there.
Yep.
Whether we want to.
Yes, that's what I was going to bring it up under that one,
Yeah, so,
but that was
Yeah.
going to townships, but okay, that's fine.
yeah, so, but we do have general consent. Can we just go back that one slide?
Yeah, we had general
We had general
consensus
consensus on the ROE and the pads and the 211. Yes, okay. So
Everybody's got the green light on that.
we have the green light. Okay, so now we're moving on to our external government agencies.
If I could just
Yes, go ahead.
respond to Member
Please do,
Krajewski's
please
comment.
do.
So,
Thank you.
food assistance and fighting food insecurity is absolutely seen as really one of the core components of the 10 million. I think the challenge with wanting to give money to food pantries is that there are 47 of them at least. And so who's going to get the money? How much are they going to get? How are we going to handle reporting? So those are, it's certainly up to the board to decide if you want to put additional funding in for food pantries. I think the administration of it is what that's, what we've been struggling with all along in my department. It's why we're partnering with the DuPage Foundation. The simplest solution to assisting food pantries is to give funding directly to the Northern Illinois Food Bank because they have all those partners. That's, like I said, it's the board's prerogative. If we're starting to talk about funding to individual food pantries, we're talking about a significant administrative function that has to go along with that.
Well, we have 10,000, 30,000, 50,000 businesses in DuPage County, and we gave 682 money. We didn't give it to, and choose DuPage figured out a way that they have FIFO, first in, first out, but they were able to give out $15 million in a short period of time. But we clearly have 10,000 businesses in DuPage, only 600 of them got it. So again, I don't know how to do it, but I think however you want to do it, do it per district, 47 of them. But that's the problem is Northern Illinois Food Bank is out there. They're going to get the money, but I'm just specifically talking to one that's out in my area that is spending thousands of dollars a month. They can't get the stuff from Northern Food Bank.
Okay, we have member Selman and then member Renahan and then member Ozak.
So just to reiterate, the entire point of the 10.6 million is to not do little drips and drabs and Band-Aid solutions, which is what that would be. It's to make long-term, for example, a hunger solution. So it'd be to look at the constituency of Fishes and Loaves and see what the long-term solutions are and to come up with 5-year plans, not just give them groceries. That would be too small of a scale for the grant and the expertise that we are accessing with this. I would also, Fishes and Loaves is a separate 501c3 with their own advancement staff. They can raise dollars. If we're looking at townships who are serving other folks, they don't have those resources. That's why we're creating this. So I think we should keep those two very separate.
Thank you, Member Salmon, Member Renahan, and then Member Ozak.
I think our conversation is about to dovetail. I think we're about to get to the solution you want in our next conversation about township allocation. Nick, am I right?
That's, I mean, obviously the food pantries within townships are absolutely would be covered by this. The one where we're not talking about would be maybe the small food pantries that are not related to a township, not Northern Illinois Food Bank. That's where I think there might be a question, and that's ultimately a decision by the board. If you guys choose to allocate money to that sector, we can then look at and figure out how would we administer it and come back to you and let you know. But as Mary said, it's not the easiest, obviously, to figure out how to administer that.
Okay, so I have Member Ozag, then Member Chowski, Member Desart, then Member Garcia.
To piggyback on Member Krajewski's issue, we have the Glen Ellen Food Pantry, which serves numerous communities in the Glen Ellen area. And I'm not sure what their affiliation is. I'm pretty sure they are with the Northern they're with the Northern Illinois Food Group. But my issue is it possible? And I like Member Krajewski's idea of an immediate grant, because it would seem to me that it really wouldn't be that big of a reporting issue, because you'd simply be giving money for an immediate need as we head into fall and winter. And I'm also concerned, I know we haven't gotten there yet, but I'm remembering the CARES issues last year with the townships not spending their money.
Yeah.
So I would like to see, as we go into the next or minor, small bucket, I'd like to see township allocation broadened, because
To be honest with you, I think we might have that issue solved.
Yes.
So I think we might have that solved.
Okay,
So
then I won't jump ahead.
Yes.
Next slide.
But I would like us to consider a one-time grant to the 47 food pantries. We could distribute
I'm
it
gonna
per
ask
capita
Mary
or
Catherine
something along those lines.
So the
Per
question.
number of
the-
people served, whatever.
And so I'm asking Mary Catherine to come up because she's kind of our resident expert on reporting and what the requirements for ARPA. And that's, you will see that the whole, automatic disbursement is probably a no-go, but I don't know if that's any different for the food pantries, whether you feel that there can be an automatic disbursement to 47 food pantries, or do they need to have there needs to be documentation. So what we can't do is, we won't be able to do an automatic disbursement. There would have to be some kind of a criteria, additional expenses, increased demand, something to signify. So there will not be, and same thing with townships, park districts, and fire protection districts, there cannot be a check cut anymore. It has to be related to a specific item.
So it must be an application
There must be an
process.
application process.
Okay, and that's part of ARPA versus CARES, where
Yes,
we were
it's
able to
much
disperse.
more, and
I
that's,
think we gave park districts $1 million, and then we just did that per capita.
yeah, it's never
Yeah.
going to be done that way. It can't be with ARPA.
Okay, so ARPA is much more,
Yes.
they're
Yep,
really
the per capita is out.
data performance driven versus,
Mhm.
okay, got it, thank you.
Thank you. I have Member Chowski next, Member Desart, Member Garcia, then Member Krajewski. Go ahead, Member.
I'm dovetailing with Commissioner Ozark said. I agree that, and I think that what Nick's saying, we have to broaden the township, but these, seems like fire protection districts, park districts, and townships seem to be always like left off to the side. I'm glad to see we're giving something to them for their special needs as well.
Thank you, Member Pachowski. Member, I got you on my list, Brian. Member Desart, Member Garcia, then Member Krajewski. Member Desart, go ahead.
Thank you. Member Krajewski, I totally agree with you. I'd love to see an immediate grant for food specifically. And I'm sure that every single food pantry and food bank can show that that they have, what did you say, increased demand, especially now as we move toward Thanksgiving. But I think each of us would have a special place in our hearts. Mine is the People's Resource Center in Wheaton. Love their model, love that they allow people to shop, to grocery shop like it's a normal grocery store. And then it's amazing. Member Renahan introduced me to the People's Resource Center. So I would like to explore some way, and you gave some specific bullet points on ways that we could give them some money right now, and one of the bullet points was increased demand, and I'm sure all 47 could show increased demand. Thank
So-
you.
So my suggestion, and obviously, and when we get to the fire protection district and talk about it, we're not gonna move right away on that because we have to develop the program. If the consensus of the board is, hey, we want to try to help the food districts and you guys would like to add money to the 5 million, we can add that to the group here. So the time to do that would be now, and then we can develop a program if that's what the group wants.
Okay, so we have, hey, Brian, I got you on my list. You're right after member Garcia. Member Garcia, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. And I'm kind of going ahead in your whole program here, but I mean, there is, with this community assistance, they do have to apply for grants from what I'm seeing, correct?
Yeah.
So if there is a food, I mean, I don't know how quickly we can get this all into place. I think we were talking about more about 2022 with getting everything in place. So perhaps there is a need for just something to get out there to help us through till 2022, till something is set up. I personally wanted to talk about the fire districts, which while we were sitting at home and we were protected, I mean, they were the ones that were going out in their ambulances. I think 80% more calls for the fire. So I would like to see absolutely this 5 million go through to get some kind of help for the fire districts.
Great, thank you. I have you on the list,
And wait.
member Ozog.
Not done, and also the homebound program, the fire district has taken all of those costs and eaten them. So I think we really have to be sure that we are covering them and what they've already lost. And that's the same thing with the park districts. I mean, my village has lost $5 million over the COVID-19 period. So, I mean, I'm pretty sad they weren't actually included in ARPA and that they didn't get things, so didn't even have to go through us, that they were just provided that. But the way it's seeming that they, if they have needs that fit the ARPA requirements, they can apply for the grants, and that's what I'm seeing with the next steps in the process.
Well, I think with this program, with the townships and the fire districts, they're gonna have to bring a plan forward.
Correct.
So it's not gonna be like just apply, they're gonna have, because our staff spent so much time with the townships last year trying to assist them and just handing out the money, which it was really not worth it. So now the onus is on them. They're gonna have to bring a plan forward. So we're not just gonna give out this money to fire districts and townships. They're gonna have to have a plan and we'll reimburse them that way. But let me continue on my list. Member Desart, I'm adding it to the list, and then we're gonna have to really kind of move on because we have, we're running out of time. But Member Kajewski.
Yeah, real quick, Kevin, if we just said of the 47 food pantries or 43, everybody gets a cap of 25,000 and they just submit expenses of what they've spent outlaid since March 3rd on buying stuff, that would qualify, wouldn't it? That's an easy thing to put in. You just, ask our expert
Yeah,
there. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's the reporting. It's the reporting. That's the real issue. So I want to just clarify a couple things. So the Northern Illinois Food Bank has about 47 partners. When you give them funding, it rolls down to all of those partners. Those partners then get additional food for free. There are some large nonprofit organizations that run food pantries. The big three are People's Resource Center, West Suburban, and Loaves and Fishes. They're very sophisticated organizations. There are food pantries that are affiliated inside township government. And then there's a lot of food pantries that are small, volunteer-run, nonprofit. Some of them aren't even nonprofits. They're basically out of a church basement a couple times a week. So the challenge with opening it to all of them and individuals really is the reporting. Last year, we did the sort of the big three, and then we did, I think, 9 additional kind of smaller food pantries. They really, really struggled with giving us the receipts and just getting that reporting back to us. And that's that's sort of the second tier. So I would be concerned about opening it up to all of Northern Illinois partners, because some of them I really don't think could handle the reporting requirement.
Back to Mary Catherine, if they present a receipt that they bought food at the store, is that good enough that they bought that to give out to somebody?
The problem, yes, the problem is that's sufficient, but makes them eligible. That's an eligible expense, but they have to lay out the program in advance of what they're gonna do.
Under
And we have to
ARPA?
lay out, you know, how we're going to evaluate that program in
Un-
advance. So just simply setting up a program that's reimbursement based for COVID eligible expenses. That's what we did last time. That's not going to work with
But under
ARPA.
ARPA, can you,
Yeah,
because so under ARPA for food pantries, giving an expense for spending money that you then gave out to people is not qualified. You got to come up with some big elaborate plan.
You have to
Under
come up with a
ARPA?
plan, and we have to evaluate it, and we have to see who is getting the benefits, and it has to be tracked. It's much more elaborate than we had last time around. I mean,
you-
it, as Mary Keating was just saying, we did have a fair amount of trouble with the food pantries on the back end, on the administration. You know, some just walked away from their money in some cases because they couldn't, you know, do
So
the
the expense
accounting that
and the
was needed.
family, I mean.
So that's a challenge for us.
I'll look at it in more
So
detail, because I can't imagine this thing
So,
being that hard.
so the one thing to keep in mind, a big portion of ARPA reporting is, you know, detailing who benefits, how they benefit, and that has to be in the reporting to the federal government. So unless if we get that information from the food banks, that's the problem that that's something that, and at the very last slide of this, on all of our partners that we're gonna fund it outside, there is a huge additional requirement for reporting that, I mean, I'm not saying that a food bank, I mean, if that's what the board wants, we can add that in there and we'll figure out a program to work
I just
around
like
it.
to look in more detail, because the 501c3 not-for-profit's mission is to give food to the people who don't have it. I don't see how that's not going to qualify under ARPA.
It's just the reporting requirements at the back end. But the one thing I would say too, for park districts, just to keep in mind as we consider this, remember that all the municipalities also receive money out there. And so theoretically, we will need, when we do this, to figure out what that means for us giving money. You know, if we go to, you know, an incorporated municipalities park district, should they be getting money from the municipality as well? And those are some considerations. That's why we're just simply putting an earmark on 5 million, and we've got to figure out, I mean, obviously at the direction of the board, how this program is going to work.
I got a list here.
Sorry, I think I was next.
Yeah, so, okay, so I have a list of the next speakers. I have member Schwarzy, member Selman, member LaPlante, Ozog Desart, and Renahan. Okay, so member Schwarzy, and then do you want to be on the list? Don? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
I feel like we have two different things going on here. We have this item which originally was in front of us with fire districts, park districts, and townships, and now we're really focusing, and I know townships have some food pantries, but I feel like we're getting off this specific topic, and maybe we need to have both conversations. But you know, I want to stress, and I think thanks to Member Garcia for stressing the fire districts. You know, as Nick Kottmeyer said, you know, municipalities are getting their own share, which municipal fire departments are a part of that, where the fire districts are getting nothing. We're still responding every single day to COVID patients. Every single day, we're wearing multiple N95s, gowns, goggles, gloves. You know, it hasn't, you know, it hasn't gone away, at least to the first responder level. So we're also, our firefighters are still coming down with COVID. We're still having quarantine issues at times. There is the mandatory testing and/or mandatory vaccinations at our level. I think I'm starting to question whether 5 million in this specific category is even enough. We all know how hard the park districts have been hit, and they're so valuable as well. So I want to stress that I feel like we're getting off topic. Maybe we talk about two different things, but I'd like to make sure we stress what's on the list here. So
Thank you, member Schwarzy. Point well taken. Member Selman?
Thank you. I do unfortunately want to circle back to the conversation about the food pantries. Mary, can you help us understand how many staff members would it take for your office to manage 47 5-figure grants?
Well, it's difficult to say.
But do you have them?
I don't have them.
So it's impossible, even if we wanted to
I
do
would need,
this.
we
in a
would need some
theological,
sort of
we don't
additional
have the
staffing
staff.
resource, either in my department and or finance.
Okay, thank you. That's my only question.
Thank you, member Selman. Member LaPlante?
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm
just-
sort of echoing what Member Schwarzy said, and that is, if Nick, am I correct? Well, Nick, I'm sorry. Am I correct in understanding at the end of these, going through these 5 buckets, there's going to be discussion for additional ideas and, ways to spend some ARPA funds?
Are you, I mean, each of the items, even, I mean, obviously, if the board says, yes, 5 million is good here, there is a
Right.
whole bunch of discussion that has to happen at the board finance level to figure out how we construct every single item on here has additional insight.
Yes.
And, there's still theoretically 40 million and most likely more than that available for this board to allocate at a future date as well.
Exactly. So I
there's
think
more
that
meetings.
I would like just to piggyback to say, can we please focus on, I just feel like we're losing the thread here. And if we can really focus in on what is in front of us and go through it, how it was, presented here, these 5 buckets, and then perhaps we have these brainstorming sessions that we could add to, but I feel that we're losing the thread.
Thank you very much for your comments. Member Ozog, go ahead.
I just have in terms of park districts, for instance, I was speaking with a colleague who's on our local park district. They've lost revenue, obviously they've lost fees, et cetera. So with the way this worked, they've lost the revenue. So would they then be able to apply, say, to fund next summer's lifeguards and summer employees, that kind of thing? Is that how this would work? And is that?
So the question is.
The question is how they've lost revenue. So if they wanted to fund, for instance, summer employment next year, would they be able to apply for that with a plan in place and then they'd be able to do that?
Just to be clear, they would not qualify for lost revenue. There is a component of the overall program where we would qualify for lost revenue, but any of our subrecipients don't qualify under the act.
So they would not qualify for lost revenue.
Correct.
So how would park districts be able to get relief? Is there some?
If they have COVID related expenses or COVID related programming,
Okay,
those
so
are all things that would be
PPE, or
eligible.
if there's sequestering.
Maybe they want to build like a new facility that's more socially distanced, that's why everything is project based.
Okay, so for instance, if there was an athletic facility and they wanted to do HVAC or something along those lines, that's more or less what we're looking at versus, so we're looking at more capital versus operating, not specifically.
I mean, there could be operating in there too. That's
Yeah.
why it is so, there is so much work that has to be
Employees,
done
there could be various.
for us
Okay.
to put guidelines out there. It's
Okay.
CARES Act. Everybody's got to forget CARES Act because ARPA
Yes.
is 100% different.
Okay, and my other comment is that if we do find of the 5 million, which I'm in favor of, especially in the fire districts, we could always allocate out of our $40 million fund, especially fire districts.
I think we're
where
going to make a motion to increase this before we're done with this bucket. So,
Okay.
yeah, so thank you. Member Desart and then Member Renahan.
All right, thank you. This is not what I wanted to ask, but if we're going to increase this, where are we going to take the money away from?
We have the money. We're not taking away from anywhere. It's in the ARPA funds. We'll just take it from
what bucket to
40
what bucket?
Well, we'll take it from the 40 million that we have or for the
40.5 million.
surplus or.
I don't want to take it from the surplus.
We'll take it from the 40 million that we have. Yeah, so we'll take a $500,000
All
out of
right,
there.
well, my other question was this, I'm fully supportive of giving money to the fire protection districts, the park districts, and I just want to stand up for the township allocation real quick, because, I feel like they've been disparaged because they couldn't spend all of their CARES Act money, but, I tried really hard to get Naperville Township Supervisor Eddie Bedford and Lisle Township Supervisor Mary Jo Mullen to use that money. And Mary Catherine gave her time generously. We had several Zooms about it as well. But what it came down to was our process. And our process was that they had to spend money out of their pockets and then get reimbursed for CARES Act money. And a lot of the townships didn't have money in their pocket to pay for these expenses outright and then wait to get reimbursed. So that's why the townships couldn't spend the money. And I just wanted to kind of stand up for our townships in that.
Thank you, Member Desart.
And while I have the floor, just real quick, I don't want to spend all this money right away. We've got 5
It's
years to
not-
spend the money.
It's not being spent right away. This is a plan for the whole term of up until December 2026. And Member Renahan, go ahead, please.
I forgot what I was gonna say. It took so long.
So sorry.
Got a question that, okay, so actually, no, not you, everybody. Anyway, public sector revenue loss. Would Park District or Fire District or any of these, this bucket, do any of those qualify under the government services? None of those qualify. Okay. Okay, just double check.
Correct. Municipalities qualify because they have their own, they receive their own money from the federal government.
Okay, just checking on that. And the other thing I just want to say, we did learn some lessons last time with the CARES Act. I definitely led the charge to get money to small food, I guess, pantries versus banks. I think we did a good amount. We maybe gave them 35,000 a piece, and it was very well received. However, the trouble is the need was so great, and it continues to be so great. They're letting anybody who shows up take food. And so then in a way, they're kind of how they can thread the needle on receiving funds. They can no longer vet people to the same degree to guarantee that they're low income, right? So we're kind of in a catch-22 a bit. I mean, I like giving food to the food bank or food pantries, I'm sorry, but I think it is hard on capacity for our staff here. So maybe there's another way, Northern Illinois Food Bank or something, but my 2 cents.
So, okay, so do we have any more discussion on this bucket? Okay, so really I thank everybody for their comments. I understand Member Krajewski's passion about wanting to help these food banks. I really get it. Maybe a suggestion might be to sit down with staff and see if there's some kind of a plan that we could put together quickly to help guide these, give money to these food banks. Just saying, if you're super passionate, maybe that might be a way for you to go and look into that. And also, I just.
Member Chapman, could I be involved in that too, since I have nonprofit
Absolutely.
experience? and
Sure.
can actually
If
feel for
Member
it?
Krajewski and you want to sit down with staff and try to come up with something, I think that's a great idea. Also, I think Member Schwarzy brings up a good point about the money for the townships, fire districts. So how about if we increase that to 5.5 million for now, and then we see how that goes, and then we can, if we see the need, we can possibly increase it a little bit more. Is that suitable? Oh, Don, your mic, please.
With 9 townships, with all the park districts and fire protection districts, 500,000, really, I don't think would go too far. I would think we ought to substantially increase it, $2 or $3 million.
And just to, and obviously whatever number you guys give us, we will absolutely put in there, let you know where we got the 5 million. That's about what we spent in CARES Act for those 3 groups together. And that's how we arrived at the 5 in ARPA. I mean, clearly, if the group wants to go lower or higher, just give us a number.
Okay, Sam, you have a number?
7.
No, I don't have a number, but I thought, maybe I'm confused. This number that we're going to ultimately come up with at the end of the day is going to be juggled up and down in the next months and years, depending upon how much each of these buckets use. So I don't know, and I don't have any objection to raising this bucket anymore, but if the fire districts show that they need $7 million in a year, we're going to find that 2 million someplace.
I think you.
So
hit the
I'm concerned about raising an arbitrary number right now and maybe not giving us that flexibility later on. I totally agree. We should give them if they need it. Well, if they don't spend it, we can take it back, but I think we all know that if you give people money, they're going to spend it, and that's okay if they need to. But I think it's important to have that flexibility and understand that just because we're allocating something now doesn't mean that we're limited to that.
I think you're spot on that one, because once we develop the program and all of a sudden, let's say the fire districts spend everything right away, we come back to you and say, hey, that's 5 million, the fire district spent everything, we need more money. And then you make the decision at that point. We don't know what the need is until we start seeing the need.
Right.
So whether it's 5 million now or 7 million, if you guys put 10 million in it, there might only be a $4 million need, and we got 6 million left.
I guess it's 6 or one, half of those the other, whether we have the flexibility to give it to them now. But in any event, my point was just because we say 5 million doesn't mean you're limited to 5, you're
Right.
limited to 5 million.
Okay, and then member Schwerzy to close, and then we'll move on with this
You know what,
bucket.
based on our CAO's comments of 500 or 5 million from last year, I say we keep it at 5 million for now with the option of looking down the road, see if we need.
Okay, great. So taking the community assistance bucket, do we have a general consensus to move this forward? Yes. Yes, it looks like we have a general consensus.
Got it.
Great, thank
Okay,
you.
So
But I'm sorry, what was that?
we will start to develop a program to come back to discuss that. Next one, campus COVID mitigation projects. I think this is what, obviously a fairly big ticket item. So we broke this into 2 areas. We sub buckets again, campus COVID mitigation capital and campus COVID mitigation technology. You see capital is pretty big, 34.5. This is what includes the care center improvements along with a lot of other ones, and then technology for a total bucket amount of 39.9. Here's you can see here 34.5 for the capital. That includes this. So whole bunch of HVAC projects, exactly what ARPA and CARES Act were intended for. You've got the care center HVAC improvement, 7.5 million. This one and the next one are probably your most important projects here on campus. We are doing ultraviolet with care center, and JLB is an absolute must do when it comes to projects here on campus. That with the congregate living in both of them, those 2 are pretty important, but they have a pretty big price tag as well, 7.5 and 6.0. We've got some smaller HVAC. Do I have to be in a perfect spot here or what? Next slide. Yeah. So 421 right here in this building. Getting pretty old, so we're putting in bipolar and ultraviolet, 2.7. And then although the smallest, but by definitely not the least important, is the HVAC over in the power plant, because it feeds the entire campus. What happens over there benefits the entire campus. Tim and his team have done an incredible amount of work on these already. And if you guys approve these projects, JLB will likely be on the street and probably be awarding in before Christmas. That's how critical it is. So these signify the HVAC improvements. That is all air quality. First 2 congregate living, they're definitely recommended. Next slide. Here's the big one. This is the big one, and this is the game changer for the entire campus. The care center, $16.7 million. Total project is actually over 20 million because of other funding sources in it. But this is kind of the watershed moment for the care center, whether we make that up to speed for the day or we don't. I mean, this project makes it competitive with private sector, public sector. It's going to be a true gem for what's happening, and everything we're doing. That's why you have different funding. 16.7 million of it's ARPA eligible for what we're doing. Some of it is not ARPA eligible, and that's what you see at the bottom between the Ken Moy Foundation, the CDBG, ComEd Energy grants. I mean, and this is a long project, 3 to 4 years, tons of permitting. Not going to be easy, going to be completely disruptive for operations. It's going to be a nightmare of a project, but it's going to be one of those projects that we either do it now or we never do it.
Okay, member Ozog, member Selman, and then member DeCiani. Go ahead, member Ozog.
What year was the care center constructed?
Originally 1800 something.
I'm not asking about the original poorhouse.
Tim, do you have the date?
60?
All right, Janelle.
Janelle is here. So some of it was built in the 70s, some of it was built in the 80s, and a smaller portion in the 90s.
Okay.
And
would it be
And it has not been upgraded since that time.
My next question. Thank you, Janelle.
We did We worked with Janelle and her staff to do kind of maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we did like a little template of what it would take to rehab the rooms. And it's a difference between night and day.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that this project, we are planning to do under HHS, we're going to be doing a presentation there, and we're going to have the architect in and have the before and after, and it's striking. It's striking the difference.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Ozak. Member Selman?
Thank you. I think care center upgrades are a no-brainer, especially when you think about our aging population in our county. Providing resources for the most vulnerable among us is truly a no-brainer in this question. I'm wondering if, I don't know if it's something you presented to Public Works, but is there a way we can see sort of what projects have already been done on campus and then which are on deck? Because I thought we had done all the air conditioning, but I feel like every time we look, there's more HVAC to do. And so
We
I'm
could
just trying to wrap my
absolutely
brain about it.
happy to do that with, in Public Works Committee, we can say, this is what we've done. What we have was not touched as part of the CARES Act. So we focused a lot more. I mean, jail has different pots, obviously. So jail beta wasn't touched. The courthouse, the annex, that was our main focus of the CARES Act, because you have so much traffic through that building. And so, but we're happy to kind of give that, maybe an aerial view, bird's eye of what we touched.
And not urgently. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure that agenda's full as well, but thank you.
And
just-
hang on, I have a
hold that
list. I have a list of people done. Hold on. So next is Member DeCiani, then Member Chowski, then Member Desart. Okay, Member DeCiani.
I think this is important, actually, probably as important as item number one, because it basically covers those properties. And those are our most vulnerable people. If we are going to be in the care business for the future, we should spend every penny of this and make sure those people are protected for the next COVID-19 that could happen in, who knows, 10, 12 years. So the equipment that's going to be used can pretty much kill any virus, correct? The ultraviolet, if you're looking at ultraviolet, you're looking at IR.
State of the art. And Cheryl actually always reminds everybody, ARPA should be used as a game changer.
Right.
And this is a game changer project.
Right. So I would support this, especially in the care center, but even a lot of other facilities too. We got the courthouse here. We've got a lot of other that we've had to actually, come to a standstill on for a while. Although, we were open, it was very challenging. If we had these capital infrastructures in place, it would have been a lot easier to operate. Given
It
the
would have helped a
situation.
lot during the.
So I'm fully
absolutely.
supportive, not only this, but the whole 40 million. Thank you.
Thank you, Member DeCiani, Member Chowski, then we have Member Desart and Member Schwarzy.
When we're talking about the care centers, there's a wing that has residents and there's a wing that doesn't have residents. We're just doing the wing that is residency occupied.
This is not the kind of the quote unquote abandoned wing. This is the wing that is being utilized right now to make sure the rooms are up to standard.
This is eight full units.
What's the game plan for that abandoned wing? I mean, it seems to me it's been abandoned for so long. I don't know. Can't we make it into some use that's ARPA related and have a community center, a senior center, or a youth center, or some center?
Happy to look at that if that's the will of the board. Not cheap.
I understand, but I would like, if we have the building there and we have some funds, do we look at doing something with it? I think yes. I don't know.
I would love to sit down with Janelle and her team and Tim Harbaugh and his team to come up with options to bring back. One of them being, obviously daycare. I know, and that's been mentioned before. We've looked at that wing for nurses training, teaming with COD. So we can bring back options to HHS for consideration. Happy to do that. I think the two of them are separate.
I would like to see that if that's the will of the board, but I would think that'd be a good idea, just to consider what possibilities that wing has, because it's been dormant for so many years.
Yes, Member Ozak can add that to her Public Works Committee agenda.
Just so everyone understands, we have 368 certified beds in that building without those underused wings, just so you're aware.
Thank you, Janelle. Member Desart.
All right, first of all, I'm going to comment to Member Pachalski. How about the haunted hallway? And we could make some money with that wing. Okay, here's my question, going back. Along with member Selman's observation about HVAC, it seems like we're always approving HVAC, so you're going to come up with what has been done and what hasn't been done. I see the same thing with page 13 and technology improvements for COVID response. It seems like we're always, what has been done? We've spent millions on it through CARES Act dollars. So I'd like to see what has been done and what has yet to be done as well.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I
Because
mean,
now it's another $5.3 million line item.
for which one?
For technology improvements for
Oh,
COVID
yeah,
response?
technology. We'll get to that one in a second, but how many total buildings do we have on campus? How many roofs do we have? So we have something like 20 different buildings. So, I mean, this is one of the biggest government campuses in the state of Illinois. So there's a lot, but I'm happy to go through and we can give like a little, 5-minute PowerPoint of, okay, this is what we touched in CARES Act. This is what we're touching in ARPA. Here's the other ones that aren't being touched. Happy to do that.
Thank you, Member Dessert, Member Schwarzy, and then Member Rutledge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a facility. These are people's mothers and fathers that live here, and as a child with parents in their 80s, I understand how important this is. This is an easy yes for me. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Schwarzy, Member Rutledge.
Just a quick question is, what is that space over there that's not being currently used? Square footage or room wise, or what is that over there?
It's multiple floors. You've got the rooms just like the other rooms. I will tell you, it's been abandoned so long that some of the infrastructure needs complete replacement. The piping, the thing, it needs complete replacement, but it's basically just an extension of the other area. It's just really, really old.
So multi-floors.
Multi-floor, and that's what's so expensive is how do you, and you can't, I mean, obviously expanding it for the care center is an easy thing, but if you have a different use, you've got to cut it off and have a separate entrance going up and down, which makes it super difficult, but
Okay.
we can definitely look at it.
And I concur with Member Pachowski.
Thank you,
Okay.
Member Rutledge, Member Schwarzy. Or I'm sorry, Member DeCiani, go ahead.
I wanted to mention, I like Member Pachowski's idea of doing something with that extra wing. We have a huge need of housing for people with disabilities who are severe and profound, to the point that people are actually locating their children out of state. And I hate to see people that live in DuPage County that have a severe and profound child have to leave our state to place their child because we don't have any housing for them. So while I think a community center would be nice, is that a want or is that a need? When I think of needs and I think of priorities, I think of the shortage we have with severe and profound with people with disabilities, and there's a huge number. And again, one of our own people that we look up to at this county had to place her son out of state, and that's a shame because you can't see your child. You maybe see him once or twice every month or two. And the thing about our care center is we have people that go there every day and see their loved one. Mayor Panetta's brother is there and his mother is there every day feeding them. And that's a great thing. So I think there's opportunities with that wing. I think we could use ARPA money to help fund those things. And there's a huge need for this. And I think we should really ideally try to step up and serve our county. There's a lot of wants, but this is a need and a priority that I think is a huge issue that most people don't realize because they don't, unless they're in a situation, they don't know of the shortage. But when I'm in the trenches with these families, when I have to see them go out of state, it kills me. Or you have to go to Kankakee or to Shapiro and have to drive 3 hours to go see their child. So, and I want one thing about Janelle Chadwick and that team over there, they do it with love. And I think our county does a great job with how we care for people over some of the state institutions that we have. So I think if we're going to recap that space, that's a huge opportunity. And I'd be happy to meet and bring the stakeholders together to talk about the need, but that would be a great use of that asset. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone's suggestions and ideas on what to do with that extra wing. And I think it's something that we can talk about, as we move forward. So
3 other small capital projects compared to the other ones, 2 of them with Mary Keating's group. We've talked about all 3 of these before. Obviously, with everything she's doing, she is running out of space. So we need to expand her third floor intake area, have room for her staff, have room to meet with the public. That's a $400,000 investment. Also, she has requested originally in the 422 Family Center improvements is more of a socially distant areas for working with kids, clothes washer and dryer, dishwasher for sanitization, 70,000. And then Clerk Adams, if you remember, she has the #1 volume for traffic here on the campus. And she would like to take her plexiglass little temporary things and make them permanent glass counters for 50,000, which for the number of people going through there, not a bad idea, because I mean, that's by far more than anything, the highest traffic area. So that is sub bucket COVID building projects capital. Maybe, I don't know if we wanted to go through that.
Yes, I think member Tornatore has a question.
Thank you. I don't know if we missed it or whether it's incorporated somewhere here, but the courthouse where I'm at, where I'm not here 12 hours on a Tuesday, it needs some help. Okay. And Clerk Adams, while I appreciate the $50,000 for the plexiglass, I can tell you that in those traffic courts, you've got hundreds of people walking in and out every day. And in the past, there used to be a kiosk outside of the traffic court where people would check in, but that kiosk has been down since COVID because they don't want anybody to touch it. So now you've got people coming in, walking past other people, checking in with the deputy who's got a tablet. And then the case is called by the judge. And we've eliminated all physical files, and we have a computer that we use. And the reality is that I think there's more people coming together there than there were before when people were checking outside. Now, I don't know what the answer is to it. I mean, I see that 24-hour thing on commercial all the time where you spray something and it's supposed to be great for 24 hours. I don't know why we don't spray the kiosk with that, but apparently that's a problem. And I would like to see maybe Clerk Adams either ask for more money if that, or if there's a plan in place to bring that back up to where we were before, to not only make it safer in those high volume traffic courts, but make it more efficient. Because quite frankly, it's not as efficient as it was before. And it's no fault of hers. It's just the reality of the situation. So $50,000 for what it appears to be the clerk's request is chicken feed compared to what I think we need over there.
We will talk to Clerk Adams and see if there's a reason why it's down and work with them. Maybe it's just a matter of we do more intense cleaning more often, but we will look at the operations. And Tim, if you could make sure that we'll absolutely look at it to see if there is something wrong over there that we need to address.
And I assume all of the HVAC for the courthouse has been incorporated into the HVAC for the county.
That it was done under the CARES Act.
Right, got it. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Member Pachowski?
I would like to know if there's anything with the courts as far as the judges. I know we have Judge Popejoy here. Is there anything that maybe Judge Popejoy would think that might be something we need to consider for either court security to judges or anything else that relates to his?
We have in the next bucket, or 2 buckets down, there are some items, and that's why he has joined us today.
I didn't see any more.
Okay. We have a few more go through. So any other?
It's a secret bucket. Secret bucket.
Go ahead, Nick, continue.
I'm trying to, so we need to figure out, once again, it's the whole clicker thing. We need to go back to this sub bucket to see if this is right there. So that's what we need to vote, our consensus.
So these 2 items here totaling a little over 34.5 million. Do we have consensus to move these projects forward? Yes.
Once again, these will take multiple years to construct, multiple years, all of them.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. Go ahead, Nick.
See how it works. Okay, the next one, technology. COVID response technology, 5.3 million. Biggest addition, cybersecurity and related operations. We have found that given how much we have expanded our access to both internal people, external people, we have opened ourselves up truly for a lot of problems. And unfortunately, people are taking advantage out there. We've been lucky so far. And there was a fairly in-depth discussion this morning at technology. And this is probably one of the biggest immediate needs we have here at the county, that they could bring the county operations down to its knees in one fell swoop. So we have gone through, this is about 1.5 to 2 years worth of cybersecurity expenses to get us up to speed to be able to continue to offer all of the services that we do. And this absolutely does qualify for ARPA, given what we've done with all the Zooms and trying to get more people doing it remotely. We have, you've seen most of the other ones, the wireless enhancements over the 503. That has been a perennial problem with Wi-Fi over there. We've heard that complaint forever. And I see the attorneys that use that building are nodding their head, yes. I mean, yeah, it's been, it's perennial. I mean, like lawyers, everybody over there. So that's 260. County website redesign. We've talked about that a lot, and we're very excited that if we move this forward to get it off. I know Anthony and his team have a kind of a playbook to move this forward quickly through technology committee, and it's still going to take a year. A year is quick, but they have a plan to do it if this is approved. Some other kind of, we've got operational network and remote work expansion, IT 19.8. This is the next one, is a reimbursement. If you remember the emergency purchase made earlier in the year for the laptops, is a reimbursement for that. The treasurer has one sole request as part of ARPA. She'd like a video conference room for Zoom, so 14.5, a fairly modest request. This is probably the top priority of the chief judge. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but finishing the video and audio upgrades that we were so successful on during CARES Act. This finishes the rest of the courtrooms over there to allow full virtual participation in the courtrooms. Is what I said correct? Reasonably. Feel free. You can add to that one if you'd like.
Well, thank you very much. I apologize for my bandaging. I had some basal cells that took me down yesterday, but they're all removed and everything's in good shape. But with a mask, I could have total coverage and be a little more stealth today, but I'm doing as best I can with what's left. As the head of the third branch of government, it's always an honor and a privilege to appear in front of you, and sitting here this afternoon through the entire presentation, I'm just in awe of what all of you have to consider and take into account and balance, especially your staff. Nick is amazing. I pick up the phone, Nick calls me back, or he answers right away. He tells me what I should do, not do, gives me an idea. Hey, you can kind of push for this, or I wouldn't really mess with that if I'm you. Gives me some great ideas. He is an unbelievable resource. And to put this all together, it's just amazing, Nick. And thank you for the opportunity to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity. I'm just here primarily for a couple of critical needs that we need. And I jumped ahead on the other two with the one thing, but yes, we have prioritized what we really need and what we really need right away. We had a bunch of things we put together as potential requests. Talked to Nick about them, pared them down, took the pencil, got rid of them, got done so that we would just come in here with what the critical needs are for us to function with what we have been given to date. And it's amazing what we've been given to date with CARES Act money. Amazing. But what we're finding out is that we have some critical needs with the implementation of all these things that have come into play. The existing audiovisual projects in the courtrooms. We created those, you helped fund those with CARES Act funding and allocations and the like, but now there's implementation that needs to be done. As we're going to slowly come out of this COVID issue and get more and more and more into hybrid Zoom, we're finding difficulties with some of the camera placements and the number of cameras that are around, some of the audio issues that are there. When we get into a hybrid situation, we're losing some of our valuable record that we have to have. And we're losing some valuable participation, and by people coming into Zoom, their awareness of what's going on other places in the courtroom as a part of their particular case. So we need some things done in that so that we do maintain the good record. That's one of the initial or most important things in the judicial process, is having a record. So we know exactly what was done for review purposes, for oversight purposes, for the benefit of our litigants. The Wi-Fi is that in conjunction with the wireless enhancement that's there. The Wi-Fi we're finding is really deficient in the 505 building. And it came out even more so this last week when there was a countywide problem that came about with the Wi-Fi across the board. We tried to implement smaller Wi-Fi connections and the like, and totally failed. The attorneys could not function in any manner, shape, or form. We had difficulties with it. We need to expand that Wi-Fi and enhance it in the 505 building so that it can be overcome the problems like we had last week and help the litigants and the attorneys that are in there, our customers, function in a proper and safe manner. The final thing is just some minimal operating costs, but we have 3 years of license fees for Zoom, which is this third item that's down here, remote work costs. We have some laptops for interpreters, which is a $2,800 figure. Some of them don't have laptops to assist the interpreting needs for those litigants that are coming in. And then just a minimal item, $600 for disinfecting wipes. We need more and more of those to take care and clean things up. So we've gone through all of the things that we've needed. We've talked to Nick about a number of things. We've gotten rid of a lot of things that we were going to ask for. We understand you're being asked by a lot of people for a lot of things. But these critical needs, completing that AV project, enhancing the Wi-Fi in 505 and 503, and then our minimal operating costs for our interpreters, our Zoom licenses, and infecting. That's what we sharpened our pencil for. That's what we came in for. And we need it pretty much right away because we're going to get out of this slowly. Now, the more and more we can, I'm going to open that courthouse up. I'm going to minimize social distancing. We're going to do the things we can do within health department regulations. But once we do, they're going to be coming, and they're going to be coming in fast, and they're going to be coming in hot. And we got to be ready to prepare and take care of them all. Are there any questions any of you have on those 3 items at least? I appreciate the opportunity to be here with all of you.
Member Giussiani.
I just want, not a question, I just want to say I did the tour and I thought what you've done already over there is impressive. And I'm sure you're going to use this to the best of your ability as you did already with the CARES dollars. So I support this effort, and we want to make sure that the courthouse is safe and functional. We're the only courthouse in Illinois, I believe, that actually stayed open.
We are the only one that stayed open, and we're the only one taking down 4 jury trials at any given time. You know, some circuits have one room that people are sitting all over the place. We don't have a traffic court backlog anymore. We've caught up with traffic court. We are trying every case that wants to go to trial. The amount that we're disposing of on a monthly basis is kind of staggering because all of a sudden, like our attorneys know in the room here, once it's ready to go to trial, maybe we should talk about something else. And so then there's settlements and there's non-suits and there's plea agreements. We're disposing a huge number of cases every month. And if you want to go to trial, you're going to trial in the 18th Judicial Circuit. We're the only circuit in the state that's doing that. Anything, anybody else?
Anything? Member Tornatori.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Your Honor. And you guys, you've done a remarkable job. I can attest that we do, as I indicated before, need help. Yesterday, I know our judge had a problem with her computer in 1003. Thursday, the entire 4th floor was down for the morning. We couldn't get on, nobody could get online. The attorneys who were zooming in, finally, we got back online around 9:30 or 10 o'clock. So the Wi-Fi is again, terribly important. And that's not a criticism of what we do, because as somebody who also practices in Cook County, it's night and day. Half the judges don't know what's going on and whether they're supposed to be Zooming or be in person in Cook, and I feel badly for them. So we're doing a great job. We just need to fine tune some of the things that we've got. And Judge, I would just tell you, don't be afraid to ask if you need it, because that's what we're here for.
Well, I also respect all the asks that you have and all the concerns that you have, and I want to be respectful of those and respectful of Nick's input from things. So I come with you, whenever I come before you, it's a critical need and it's something that we really want and need.
Okay, Member Dessert.
Thank you. I just wanted to publicly thank you. Earlier this year, you gave many of us tours of the courthouse, and you were just a great host on the tour. And thank you for being so delightful for my daughter Catherine and myself.
Thank you. It was a real honor to do all of that with all of those. I'm open all the time to help and provide transparency for everybody. We're your biggest fans and your biggest supporters also. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay.
So we have two more items under technology from Clerk Adams. And she was great. She pared her list down as well. I know she talked to her staff, and you have a scaled down list. And I was surprised how much she did scale it down. And she's like, no, I want to focus on the most critical for this, same as Chief Judge, to try to allow other people to do it. But she would like to improve, same thing, the Ethernet connection, to have connectivity in there for everybody, courtroom computers along those lines. Those are very, very important. Those are her most critical, and they actually impact the whole building over there. And I think, well, we've got two more items in there. We've got, once again, Clerk Adams for the paper files, and that's along the same lines as State's Attorney on the bottom one. They are out of, and by scanning those, they make them more available to the public. Less people come in, they can access them online, and it actually opens up space in there for them to socially distance. So it seems like not much, but it really, both those are super important to the State's Attorney and Clerk Adams. And then the State's Attorney also has a modest COVID-related technology upgrades, laptops for digital media evidence, DME, and then video conferencing kits for remote meetings. He has requested that as well. And I think he shaved his down as well. And I think that is the extent of the technology.
Okay.
So a lot of the same ones, some new ones.
Okay, Member Ozak, go ahead. Oh, your mic, Mary, please.
Can we assume that a lot of these will be done in-house and fairly immediately?
So some will move right away. Some are a little bit more like the courtroom upgrades. That's pretty intense, and
Right.
that's a third party.
But
So
laptop purchases. might
yeah,
be done.
absolutely.
Well,
It's-
depending on availability.
And I can tell you, Anthony and his team, is anything that they can do, they will. We've got our own
Yeah.
in-house electricians, so anything we can, we will. And there are supply chain issues out there too,
Right.
and they absolutely affect technology upgrades.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none. Nick, we are going to, we're going to have consensus on this bucket here, number 4B.
Next slide. Do we have that?
Do you have consensus on this
We
here?
need consensus on this one.
Yeah.
Oh, Candace is on.
Oh, hi, Candace. We all like Candace. So we did have consensus on that bucket.
Are we good?
Yes, we did. Yes.
That's consensus. Okay. We are really close. Final bucket, I promise. Economic stimulus. So not really what you think it is, because I know there's a lot more we're going to talk about. This is a great idea that the team here came up with, and it fits perfectly into the ARPA requirements. So we've been talking for a long time about a business enterprise program and how do we do an outreach and we do that. And so this fills right in with the kind of the goals of ARPA. So we're suggesting consideration of a business enterprise program to expand participation of, in our small business enterprise to all areas, all different types of, implement contract data collection or tracking prime contractors, subcontractors using race, gender, and industry code. So it'll allow us to complete our disparity study that we need in order to come up with a recommendation for this board to consider for participation by MBE, WBEs, and VBEs. And this will move the county forward leap years to be ready to participate in the construction projects that we have. This is the way that the rest of the state's going. This allows us to jumpstart it. And this is absolutely like I said, a main tenet of ARPA. And included with this would be the inclusion of a diversity position in procurement and finance to do this. It's quite a big lift. You can see we've got the business enterprise program software is 250,000. And I think we have had experts come in and talk about this. The disparity study, 500,000, but the disparity study is kind of it's my understanding it's a one-time. The business enterprise tracks for a while, and then the cost of the diversity position for a total of 991. But we will be able to track, and we will be able to finally implement, inclusion of some of the business classes that we want to try to encourage here at the county getting work. So 991.
Okay, so I have member Ozak, member Chavez, member Desart, member Chelsky, member DeCiani.
And Nick, this program would be part of ARPA focusing on impact on disadvantaged communities.
So this program, not only is it going to benefit ARPA, this is going to benefit the county as a whole. So this is going to be our disparity study, our SBE program, their basis for everything. So this is absolutely allowed, but it will benefit our regular operations as well.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Member Chavez?
Oh, there we go. Okay, so I just wanted to reiterate that because I think this came up in diversity, equity, and inclusion several times. I think that funding for this was, questionable for a little while, but what's so wonderful is I think that ARPA does call for us to really look at these disparate groups and make sure that we are covering them. So I am wholeheartedly, I think this is one of the best uses that we can make for this ARPA funding. So I'm in full support.
Thank you, member Chavez, member Desart.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, yeah, I agree. I mean, this is one of the key tenets of the ARPA funds guidelines. So I think it's something we have to adopt. Just a quick question. Is the disparity study like a needs assessment, or what is a disparity study? I've never heard of that.
Disparity study, it's illegal for any agency to say we're going to do a 15% set aside. There has to be a basis for why you're choosing a percentage. There has to be the need for that percentage and the supply for that percentage. And the disparity study takes all that into account. It looks at all the contracts you've done. It studies the industry out there, and it comes forward. If you don't have that, you are open for a lawsuit then for whatever you select.
All right, thank you so much. And again, I just want to reiterate, along with stormwater and water and sewer, economic stimulus is right up our alley. Thank you.
And I can tell you, Chris Schneider, I know he's online. He knows far more about this. He's been kind of the resident expert in here. So if you guys want to go deeper dive, I can definitely, he can talk to it.
Member Pachowski?
Does this all go under economic development then? Is this under there?
This is, no, there's one more, there's a little bit more on the next slide for the economic stimulus research and analysis. So this is the final piece of it. We said before, there's a whole bunch of reporting. There's a whole bunch of reports needed. This gets us to that through ARPA. We've made an estimate of about 155,000 for the evidence-based testing, the community engagement and outreach. This is what we need to meet the requirements of ARPA for Mary Catherine and Jeff and their team to do it. And so that is the extent of that bucket right there.
I thought I was on economic development. We engaged somebody to do a disparity study or do something like that. Is that incorrect?
We brought somebody in to talk about it, and we have not engaged them yet.
Oh, I thought that was a female we brought.
Yes.
That was.
Colette Holt.
You were on with
Colette
Yes,
Holt.
Colette Holt, yes.
Colette Holt is like the resident expert of that, and she came in to
You
educate.
didn't engage her? Wow, I thought we did. Okay.
We have member DeCiani, then member Renahan.
Thank you. This all looks great. And I sit on economic development. I'm concerned that, I like to push for another second round of money. I go into small businesses. I print for a lot of small companies. And, I've got a little cleaners in Addison. It's actually a member of Brashowski's district, Kiki's, right on Lake Street. She never got any county money, and she did apply. She's didn't make this first cut, but she's definitely eligible. She's a 3-4 person operation, family run business for probably 40 years. She's not an MBE, minority owned business. She never registered as an MBE, but she's a Greek woman that works her butt off, you know, and I like to see like $4 to $5 million thrown as a second round, because I'm afraid she might not be in business in 6 months if she doesn't get any help. And those are the kind of folks that, you know, we've got 100,000 companies in this county, about 1,200 are minority. So I want to look at the big picture, and I hate to see a Kiki fall through the cracks because she's not a DBE, she's not a woman-owned business, even though she technically is. She never filed that paperwork. But so again, big picture, I like to see us put $4 to $5 million additional dollars. Let's get money back into these small businesses that really need the help. And, you know, I don't mind funding this, but as far as priorities and needs, I want to make sure that lady stays in business, because right now she's battling, and she had equipment go down on her unexpectedly. But think about this: if you own a dry cleaners and used to having, you know, working in people's clothes because they're traveling or whatnot, all of a sudden all that stops. She's basically doing uniforms for the police department, the fire department. A great woman. Again, these are the type of people I like to see get that second round of money if we can. And there's a lot of them out there. So just food for thought. I like to see about $4 to $5 million go for, because we've got probably another 100, 200 companies that qualified for money, but didn't, you know, we only have so much that we put in, and that definitely could use our help. And I want to see that lady make it. I mean, she's a good woman, works hard. And, you know, I think it fits the niche we're looking to hit here, but a lot of these people don't file that paperwork and have that registration status. They're going to be overlooked if we just do this. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Member Renahan.
Thank you. You know, I really appreciate the depth that this particular item brings. You know, we had a diversity inclusion plan that we talked about, but we really haven't put teeth into it. We really haven't had the financial means to do it. And so ARPA affords us that springboard. And I think it's just, you know, just at that higher level, I think it's really hitting something that we've not been able to do. I like all the capital projects, of course, but this really is something. And whether at the end of the day, we end up with a DBE or W, you know, program or not, I mean, maybe that's not the point, but the point is we do a good self-examination. So
That's right.
I'm very appreciative.
Yes, and thank you. And you know, I'm getting, Member Renahan has mentioned this since she first got on the board. This was a priority of hers to get this DBE study done and to you have a disparity study done. So like, you know, we keep talking about, you know, these funds are really going to allow the county a way, you know, to change how we've been doing business. So it's really a great opportunity. And I think just today was the great presentation that staff has put forward. It gives the example of all of these great things that we can do that we would not be able to do if we hadn't received this money. So, you know, and really shout out to all our congressmen that worked hard to get this ARPA money through as well. So, but thank you very much. So we need to, does anybody else have any other questions or comments on this? And Cheryl was the genius in the meeting that came up with this idea. Thank you, Cheryl.
She came
Yes,
up
it
with
was
this
Cheryl.
one.
Yes, I'm just remembering.
We are super
So-
excited about this program because
yes, it
we've struggled
was
how to
really
afford it
great.
up to this point. So this is great.
It was really great. So do we have any other questions on this bucket? Bucket number 5? Okay, are we ready to take consensus on this bucket? Everybody agrees? All right,
Jim asleep?
you know, why don't you maybe sit down with Greg Bevelo and maybe Amy and talk about, you know, maybe increasing and see if we can bring something forward. I think it might be a good plan. Okay, thank you. And Member Dessart.
Yeah, I support Member DeCiani's idea, but I would like some different parameters. I'd like, would you be amenable to businesses that have not yet received CARES Act money or ARPA money so far? Thank you, because that's one of the parameters I would agree with. And I'd also like to lower the amount of money that they can have made annually. I think it started with the CARES Act dollars at 15,000. And then it went to 50,000. But what I really wanted to say is I really appreciate this presentation. So to Nick and everybody who put this whole day's presentation together and you laid out the buckets and you clearly identified what each bucket was, this has been exactly what I've been looking for. So I just wanted to use this time to thank you so much.
And I can tell you it's
wonderful.
The team did, I mean, this was like 15 people. I know Jeff and Mary Catherine, they both did a tremendous job everybody's worked together on this one. I'm glad that it's kind of
This
hitting the
is
mark.
awesome. This is gelling for me now, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
We have a couple more, like 2 more quick
Yeah.
slides.
Yeah, and remember to start, just if I could just really quick, remember to start, if you are interested on that program with Pete, maybe you can go in with Amy and Pete and talk about.
Absolutely.
developing-
Sure. I'd love to
That
serve
would-
on
that
the
would be a great
committee
way
with
to do
you.
that.
Sure.
So-
Thank you.
So 2 more
Thank
quick
you.
ones and then we're done.
Yes, yep.
So this brings us back to where we're at. Based upon what we had, there were no changes today. All of the buckets and categories were approved, leaving 40.5 million. There's a lot of things we'll look at and we'll examine more, but we do need to have some direction from you guys, what you would like to move forward, when you'd like to move it forward. And that can be another discussion we can have in finance at some point, but we've got, staff has a lot of good direction to move these projects forward. So thank you on that one. So everything I just said in there, we're going to move it forward, and then we will probably work for the portal for Q1, unless if we have different direction, but we can follow up, at a later time in finance. And then this final one is offered because these ARPA, the CARES Act and ARPA, you'd be surprised how many of our external partners out there watch these meetings. And so we wanted to take this one opportunity for one slide for them, just so they realize there's going to be a lot of external partners that end up getting money. The 40 million, I'm assuming a good portion of that may go. We wanted to just pass on a little bit of information to them so that they listen. ARPA is totally different as CARES Act, as we've been saying all along. They have to realize there's going to be a lot of reporting requirements that are going to come with the money that they'll get. All the program evaluations are going to be evidence-based out there, longitudinal, unbiased, reliable, and statistical methodology for that. Expenditure reporting is required, and the Treasury guidelines specifically target disproportionately impacted communities with systemic public health and economic challenges due to the pandemic, including low-income communities and people of color. So our external partners need to realize that the bar is substantially higher for reporting and what's going to qualify. And that is it. So thank you so much for spending 2.5 hours.
Yeah, so thank you. Thanks to all the board members that came and participated. Thanks, Member Zay, for being online. Thank you to all of our staff and all of our department heads and all of our elected officials and our IT and everyone that stayed this afternoon. I really appreciate it. So do we have any old business? Oh, yes, Member Chavez, go ahead, please.
Sorry, thank you. So I just want a quick question I know we kind of mixed up. I loved how this came out with the buckets, but I know that we also had some line items that were in the previous iterations above the line, below the line. For those member initiatives that maybe didn't make these buckets, what do you want us to do to present those going forward?
So that's up to this, finance committee, how you guys want to move forward with what was not in there, what was maybe new initiatives. I mean, I'm open for whatever. My recommendation is maybe talk to, Chair Chaplin,
Okay.
and we can come back and do a follow-up meeting, or we can wait till spring, whatever you guys would
Okay,
like.
yeah, and yeah, if you,
I
again,
would-
yeah, I was,
Yes,
Yeah.
I would take everything to the parent committee.
yes, and take it through your parent committees. And, again, if you have ideas of how you want to spend the money, email them to staff. That's a great way to do that. So, okay, any other old business, any new business? Okay, seeing none, can I have a motion to adjourn? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you all so much.